continuation of the reading of the book Beyond Human by Eve Harold, how cutting edge science is extending our lives. So this would be part 4 of that reading. We're on page 20 of the 2016 edition. And I don't know where I stopped, so I probably will back up a little bit. Many people alive today will have to personally grapple with the side effects of CTs, both the good and the bad. For example, scientists very recently achieved a direct interface between a human subject's brain and a computer by capturing the electrical pulses of the subject's brain and converting them into signals that the computer could read. The human subject sent a very simple message: move a certain finger across the internet to another computer that was connected to another person. The recipient got the message and moved his finger as instructed. As rudimentary as this exercise was, it proved that human brains can be connected to both computers and through them to other brains. While this procedure has tremendous possibilities for people to communicate directly with each other despite vast distances, the technology could gravely be abused. With direct brain-to-network and brain-to-brain connections, could an employer, for instance, require each employee to connect to the company network, a shared consciousness that not only intrudes the company's message into the mind of the user, but also potentially reads the user's thoughts? What essential rights to privacy do we all share regarding the nature of our thoughts? Will the right to keep our thoughts to ourselves be abdicated once this technology develops to a more sophisticated stage? Will governments and powerful corporations have the ability to plant thoughts into our heads? For some people, there is something inherently unsettling about being totally dependent on artificial technologies for life or for a vital function. It's not at all clear whether artificial parts such as artificial organs or neural implants will be considered part of the recipient's body or a foreign object placed into it. Given the pace of development of artificial implants, the issue is greatly complicated by the increasing integration of implants with the body's natural processes. That being the case, we are going to be met time and again with the question of what is you and what is not you. This is especially critical at the end of life. For example, a technology that stimulates the endless production of stem cells from within the body could cure a wide range of diseases, or at least hold them at bay for a very long time. Yet the day will come when some incurable disease process reduces the quality of life to something less than desirable, perhaps even unendurable, and then we would want to put a stop to the generation of stem cells. When and how would the process be stopped, and who would stop it? Would cessation of therapy be regarded as murder, suicide, euthanasia, or something else we have yet to name? As much as we don't want to consider an end to human life, so far no one has escaped death. Some thinkers, such as Ray Kurzweil, predicted that death would be eradicated when we succeeded in uploading our minds into machines, but so far we are a long way from achieving immortality. Most of us, when given the choice, would gratefully accept many more decades of life if they were fit and healthy years. But the hope for biological immortality may ultimately prove futile. The fact remains that there is a compelling need to lay down some rules for the discontinuing of advanced technologies, including those implanted in our bodies, in order to allow compassionate death. Some questions may be unanswerable at our current state of technology. If we were to embrace human enhancement in every way, shape, and form that scientists and engineers could devise, would we still come up against a natural limit in lifespan, memory, or strength? Would we simply meet with the law of diminishing returns, continuously patching up a body that is so worn out and diseased that life becomes an unbearable burden? Do each and every one of us have a right to die at some point, even if that means deactivating some technology that is deeply integrated with our bodies? At the same time, might there be a non-biological stage of existence that we would accept over death? And if so, what would it look like? An intriguing question is whether there is some part of us that can't be enhanced through technology and can only evolve on the basis of lived experience. I am thinking here of mental, emotional, and spiritual phenomena, which may be forever beyond the reach of technology to alter. If this is the case, all technologically advanced enhancements applied to an immature being might bring very little change in one's quality of life or depth of experience. It's possible that we may never be able to answer this question until we embrace human enhancement on every level and see where it leads us. The transhumanist philosopher Anders Sandberg has written that we change as humans not because we are unhappy about who we are, but rather because we want to become better. Self-transformation is not a search for some imaginary state of perfection, as is sometimes suggested, but rather an open-ended process. As we grow as people, our ideals and values also grow and change. It's because of the open-ended nature of our perennial search for betterment that predictions of what human beings will be like for 1,500 or even 200 years from now is so difficult. Those values that we cherish today may be of little importance to human beings who live on an experimental plateau far above the one we share today. On the other hand, those values that persist through the coming technological age will achieve greater validation. For example, if everyone becomes tall, thin, and beautiful through genetic engineering, being beautiful may no longer be the sought-after value it is today because it will be commonplace. It's possible that our values might shift towards a different standard of beauty or to something altogether different. The value that we currently place on inner beauty, a far more elusive concept, may survive and even intensify. The question is, will converging technologies fundamentally transform human beings and human life into a qualitative way, or simply entail a multiplying of qualities we already possess? Bioethicists who write about the technological advances discussed in this book almost to a person call for the need to bring certain enduring, if evolving, values into sharp focus before we accept changes that could threaten those values. Each of the techniques presented here has at least the potential to threaten some of our most cherished values, including human dignity, freedom, equality, individuality, democracy, privacy, or autonomy. Some of them can threaten our abilities to make our own decisions about issues as intimate as the manner in which we die. Questions arise about the extent to which we have the right to embrace, reject, or limit profound changes to our bodies and brains. In a world where greatly augmented abilities, in addition to very long life, are embraced by a majority of people, will one really have the option of choosing not to accept enhancement? Suppose that a significant minority of people either can't afford or decides to reject technological enhancement. Will those people represent a disadvantaged underclass? How will they be treated by the rest of society? That's an interestingly relevant question these days, isn't it? As illustrated by Victor's story, the questions we face not only entail a greater interaction with our machines, such as the way we interact with our cell phones, they entail an actual merging with our machines to the extent that our very identity is open to interpretation. A group of bioethicists led by Courtney S. Campbell, writing in the Cambridge Quarterly of Healthcare Ethics in 2007, say that at some point, perhaps the other, that is machine, will be increasingly difficult to differentiate from the self that is embodied. Just a side note, it's really interesting that 2007 was our first little bout with what we face today, almost like a simulation test, and brought on the 2008 recession. All right, where was I? Rodney A. Brooks, director of the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, observes, while we have come to rely on our machines over the last 50 years, we are about to become our machines during the first part of this millennium. The implanting of computer chips and electronic arrays that are poised today to restore vision, hearing, movement, and memory to those who are impaired will no doubt evolve into technologies that expand the senses and extend memory and learning far beyond our present normal abilities. One reason this is considered inevitable is that because normal is a concept that eludes definition. While scientists and philosophers continue to debate the definition of normal, it is quite possible that our notion of normality will expand to accommodate the widespread acceptance of performance-enhancing technologies. If biomedical advances proceed in the future in the way that they have become integrated and accepted in the past few decades, a majority of people are likely to eagerly embrace technologies such like retinal implants, functional electrical stimulation of paralyzed muscles, artificial organs, including artificial brain structures such as the hippocampus, cochlear implants, and a host of new abilities achieved through direct brain-to-computer interfaces. The reason this seems likely is that these technologies are now being introduced as life-saving, life-extending repair mechanisms. On the basis of, say, restoring sight to a blind person or memory to an Alzheimer's patient, our sense of mortality and dread of death and disability is perhaps the most compelling drive of all. Excuse me. If curing blindness is a good thing, then extending human vision to encompass infrared light must be an even better thing. One need only to consider how multiple advanced technologies develop in the process of military research. Blood transfusions, for example, were developed on the battlefield, have historically passed easily into civilian use. In a situation of war, would we hesitate to allow our soldiers such advantages as Google-free infrared vision, super sharp hearing, and increased memory and concentration? And once these technologies become widespread in the military, what's to stop them from becoming widespread among the civilian population? That which we accept in a healthcare setting is almost certain to bleed over into the territory of enhancement. What parent, if given the choice, would deny their children a gene therapy that would silence certain aging genes and extend their life and health dramatically? The line between normal and better than normal is already blurry as biotechnology incorporates more artificial inventions into the very cells and tissues of our bodies. Where will the boundary between natural and artificial lie? As we grow to incorporate more artificial interventions in our brains and bodies, we will greatly expand the extent to which we interface with an environment that is alive and intelligent, having incorporated wireless computing, GPS, and other technologies into virtually every common object of consumption. We will communicate effortlessly with our smart homes, which respond to our presence through biological sensors and computer chips implanted into our bodies, self-driving cars, utilities and environmental safety features that respond automatically to our presence, and wearable computing that continuously monitors our vital signs, needs, and even moods. These technologies, along with biologically based identification techniques such as retinal scans and implanted identity chips, will make day-to-day life much simpler, just as the environment becomes much friendlier. It's likely that we will quickly become so dependent on a smart environment that we'll wonder how in the past we lived without it, just as today we marvel that we ever lived without emails and smartphones. I would like to interject here also and just like give a statement that I gave to a doctor at our state capitol once, and it was basically like, these technologies could be good, like, doing a genetic swab to find out what medications your body and your DNA reacts poorly to is a good thing. I have a friend that was paralyzed early on, and like I would love to see him walk again, you know what I mean? But what I said to her is like these technologies could be good or bad. It all depends on whose hands they're in. So can we trust the ones that are running these things now? But there's a risk to the computerization of everything, including our bodies and brains, and that is an unprecedented danger to our privacy and oh my goodness, why can I not say that? You know it. Autonomy. That is because all this information about us, our actions, our habits, and potentially even our thoughts will be digitized, recorded, and stored somewhere. If our smart garments are able to continuously inform our doctor about our vital signs, that information must be stored and could potentially be hacked into. In a market-based economy, it might even be sold to insurance companies and other businesses or to a potential employer. And it may be made freely available to the government if we don't substantially regulate and place limits on who can have access to our personal information. It's not the end of the paragraph, but I might just stop here. I'm having difficulty reading, and hopefully when the air is cleared, I shall return and continue the reading of this book. Thank you. Have a great day.